Occasionally here in East Tennessee, I come across people that have very powerful stories, positive impacts in the community. And in this case, I have a friend named James who has a very redemptive story. He talks about his faith, and I think it's very impactful. So I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's jump right into James's story.
I'm James Eggers. I'm here, my most favorite fishing spot in the world. It's Watauga River. This spot is not only full of fish, it's full of good memories and moments in my life. I find some of the most peace that I can find in life right here in this spot. Kind of want to walk you through a little bit of my journey in life. I started out in a pretty poor home. I have great parents, but they weren't parents who really went to church. I had grandparents that were godly people that went to church and encouraged me to go to church, and stayed in church up until mid-teens, I guess, and then I kind of started sampling what life had to offer and venturing into the world, and moved through the younger life pretty quickly, it seems, and then met my wife in my early 20s. And meeting my wife was probably the greatest thing I could ever think would ever happen to me. This woman was everything I ever wanted in a woman. She was the complete opposite of me, but she brought me to a lot of the man I am today. About a year after me and my wife was married, she became pregnant, and we went through the pregnancy. Near the end of the pregnancy, we started noticing some things kind of off with her body and with the way things were going, so speeded up a little bit. She goes into labor, and there's a lot more problems than they know. My son goes into fetal distress, and he starts breathing inside the womb, and he breathes in this fluid mixed with where he had pottied inside the womb, and it created like a tar in his lungs, and 2 days later he was going to heaven. At that point, I pretty well snapped. I hated everything. I guess I was challenging God, just seeing, what He could do to me. What can you put me through more than I've already been through? I would spend time every night standing in my yard screaming at God. I was mad. I turned to the world and myself, thinking I can heal this. The world has what I need to take care of this. I continued on in life, and just a path of drugs and alcohol, and I was a hard worker, stayed steady at work, worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3, to take care of my kids, provide for my wife. We made it through this patch, and again, not relying on God, very little, praying when I needed something. That's pretty much the only prayer that came out of me. We moved from the little tiny rat hole house that we lived in when we first came together, and we came to a lot nicer house here in Elizabethton, and things started looking up, and my wife became pregnant again with our now 3rd daughter, or 3rd child, youngest daughter, and things were going pretty great. And then by the time my youngest daughter was in 2nd grade, right when she started 2nd grade, my wife was diagnosed at 35 years old with breast cancer. So when they go in and they do surgery and they remove lymph nodes, and they find that there was only one tumor, but they find that in her lymph nodes, a couple of them had cancer in the lymph nodes, so it had went through her body. So we began this fight, and this woman to me was my fortress. She was my protection on earth, in which it should be God that's our fortress. That's who we should run to for comfort, for protection, for hiding. So we battled. When I say we, I helped her along. I carried her, I fed her, I took her to numerous doctor's appointments, spent hours upon hour upon hour upon hour in hospitals, and watched her battle. And my wife, when we realized she was really sick, it was fast. She got a chest cold that everyone in her office had this chest cold. But within a few days, they were back working. 2 weeks later, my wife's cold's just progressing. She couldn't take 2 steps and breathe good. So we take her to the hospital and we check her in, and we're thinking it's progressed maybe into pneumonia. I mean, this is something we can battle. And they start doing tests and checking on her, and she just progressively gets worse. And they're putting her on oxygen and giving her medicines. And then they come to me and they tell me that the only way her body's going to get rest is if they intubate her. And I knew when people get intubated, it's usually not good. And in my experience, the people I've seen be intubated didn't come out. So I took a moment. My youngest daughter standing right by her mother, me standing at the foot of her bed. My wife looks at my daughter and she tells her, just in case, this was all just in case that she don't wake back up. She says, take care of your father. He needs you. She looked at me and she told me she loved me. And I told her, I love you and I'll be right here. No matter what happens, I will be right here. And she went from one hospital to the next, and at the hospital that she went to was a bigger, better hospital, but they still couldn't really do nothing for her, and she was decreasing. So a team from Vanderbilt University flies here. They bring this machine that takes the blood out of her body and it puts it back in after putting oxygen into her blood for her. And this machine really helped her a lot. So they got her body picked up and built up and was able to fly her to Nashville. We drive down, and literally by the time we get to Nashville and her settled in her room and we get there, she's now at the point where they're bringing back sedation a little bit, and she can kind of respond to me. And the doctors are upbeat and they're telling me, you know, this is looking good. We have a good feeling about things. And so I'm talking to my wife and I explain it all to her. And I asked her, I mean, she's still intubated, are you good with this fight? And her thumb comes up out of my hand. So I'm ready. I'm a fighter, so I'm like, let's get it. And after a few days of, gotta let these geese get through. My nemesis. Look, I always worry. A few days of her being at Vanderbilt, round the clock, nurses in her room. I mean, people not ever leaving her room. This is their job while she's there, is to be with her. I have to come back home because I've got dogs and life and work, and so I'm here at home. I've been home, come home, slept, went to work, and I get a phone call, and it's the hospital in Nashville where I was planning on returning in just 2 more days. And they tell me, hey, we need you here now. And my first thought was to the doctor, I'm 6 hours away. They just said, simply just get here as quick as you can. Please do it safely, but we need you here. So me and my daughters and my son-in-law, we load up. When I go to the front desk and I tell the lady my name, she says, hold on. And folks, when one of the lead oncologist meets you at the front of a hospital and walks you to a conference room, it's never good. And he starts going through all the medical stuff, and I'm a straightforward kind of man. So I stopped him and I'm like, look, doc, just cut it straight to me. I want to know exactly what's going down. And he looks me dead in the eye and he says, your wife has lesions on every organ in her body. Her brain's covered with lesions. The life you see her living right now is life forever for her. 24-hour nurse, machine pumping her blood in and out of it. This is the best. I knew what had to happen, and I knew what was going to happen. But I took a few hours, and I sat with my daughters, and I talked, and I prayed. And still at this time, I'm praying when I need something. That's it. So I had a serious talk with God. And I said, God, and don't get me wrong, folks, God don't make deals, and I know that. But as a human, that's our first instinct. When we're looking to save our loved ones, we're willing to deal. And I said, God, if you'll heal her. And I knew healing for her was to take her home and make this just go smooth. I'm your man. Whatever it is, I'm your man. Fast forward a couple more hours, it comes to the point that I'm standing over my wife. I'm looking at a woman that in just a few months from that day would be 20 years married. A woman that took me from a young goofball of a man who knew nothing about love or caring for others and turned me into a loving, caring husband and father, just through her encouragement and love. And I'm standing over her. I've got, by this time, 3 daughters behind me and my son-in-law, a room full of nurses. But at the time that I give the nurse the nod and they turn the machines off, it's like total black in my eyes. All I could see was her face and the bright white bedspread or the blanket over it. And God came on me heavily. And He let me know, hey, I don't make deals, but I give you a gift of love and a gift to be able to speak to anyone you meet with true love and genuine concern for them. And I want you to use that to glorify me. And he let me know that I could reach my hand out and grab a hold, and He's going to take me. So I reached my hand out. And when I did, it was like I lifted off the floor. Now obviously my feet were still on the floor, but I can tell you with 100% honesty, from that moment, I don't remember taking a step. It was as if God Himself carried me and my family out of that. On the way out of the hospital, I stopped 3 different people and asked them if they had Christ in their life. And at this point, I'm by no means qualified enough to be bringing people to Christ. At least I thought that I was. So we go and we eat and we come home, and here I am. I'm sitting in my house. Just me and my youngest daughter live there now. And within just a few months, or about a year, she's going to be moving off and going to college. And I'm going to be totally alone. But I needed something to fill time that was not at church, when I was not at work. And I didn't want to sit in a dead space at home and depend on TV or what the world could offer me. So I went back to my childhood and I pulled out some old fishing rods. So I started fishing. And I'm at church and the guy says, hey, we got a really good fishing hole back here behind church. I'm like, really? So I thought, why not? And I'm using pretty crappy equipment at this time. I mean, it's old stuff, it's nothing great. But I come here where I'm sitting. And I walk up, tie on a little spinner, and I throw it out. And in about 3 casts, I catch a nice trout. I'm like, wow, that feels good. So I just continue to fish, and then I start doing a little better, and so I buy me some better equipment. Nothing fancy, just something that'll be more durable. And I start fishing more, and I start putting time into it. And then I start noticing that while I'm fishing, there's people floating by on boats that talk to me. Anywhere I'm at on the banks, walking a creek, I meet people and I'm talking to them. And every time I start realizing that our conversation goes to God, that I'm leading it that way. And time goes by and I spend a lot of time right here where I'm at, where you see me sitting, right here in this section, just enjoying what God created, what He gave us to love and to care for, and doing something that I truly loved, which was fishing, And not only am I doing something here that I truly love in fishing, but I'm doing it on the grounds of my church. So I feel even closer to God. I literally call this God's fishing hole, because that's what it is to me. And fishing became a catalyst for my worldly happiness, not drugs, not alcohol, not any of the bad things that I looked to before. And God guided me through this. And so time kind of goes on, and I noticed that I'm getting really good at this fishing thing. And I'm not bragging on myself, because I'll tell you the same thing I tell every single soul that I meet. This is, how do you catch all these fish? It's a gift from God. And I want you to take this fishing, and I want you to show pictures to people, and I want you to talk to them. And every time they ask you about it, you tell them it was me. And then you tell them what I've done for them overall. How I sent my son to this earth to live a life of perfection. To show an example of what could be done. And to give them a mediator between man and God. When you look around and you're standing on an unbelievably clean and beautiful river, and you hear water rippling, and you hear birds and cicadas, and you look over and you see an otter swimming, or you see a beautiful heron or an eagle fly over, or when you catch a fish and you're looking at this multicolored, beautiful rainbow trout that's got a stripe down the side, it's a sensory gland that tells it where everything's at around it. It's so delicately and finely put together. You understand what God has totally given us and how we can connect to God through the great outdoors, through fishing, through hiking, whatever it is. If your thing is gardening, I get out and I fish and I enjoy what God's created for me, and I try to bring it to everybody I can, whether it's through a lens or through my mouth. I believe that Jesus Christ, both fully God, fully man, came to this earth and lived a perfect life. He went to the cross and became the ultimate and last needed sacrifice for all sin. Everyone, both past, future. He died on that cross. He went to the grave, and He took that sin to the grave with Him, where sin remains. Because the wages of sin is death. But Jesus Christ overcame and defeated death. He rose from this grave, and He ascended to heaven to be at the right hand of the Father. And He lit a path for us through Christ to the Father. The only way to God is through Christ. So no matter where you're at in life, no matter how dark it is, no matter where you're at, how worthless you think you are, how little you think you mean to anyone, God loves you. God is there, and He sent His Son to take care of the sin and the shame that we feel without Him. You're not worthless. You're worth a lot. You're God's creation. We're in God's creation. We are God's creation. He didn't do this by mistake. Take it from someone who's been in the darkest pits you can ever imagine. I've done drugs and alcohol. I've been violent. I've been in the worst places on this earth you could imagine being in. And God reached down and He pulled me out. He dusted me off, and He set me back on the path that He originally had intended for me. And He said, go out and tell them about the love that I have for them.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed James's testimony, and just all he had to say is very powerful. As a fellow Christian, you know, it means a lot to me to hear stories like that. If you guys have any questions whatsoever, of course you can email me, or if you want, James has his own fishing YouTube channel here in the Tri-Cities as well. It's a fairly new channel, so I'm going to leave a link in the description below. Please jump on board, subscribe to him, ask him questions if you want. And of course, if you know anyone else who's had a positive impact in the community, I'd love to meet them. I'd love to talk to them and share their story as well. So leave that down in the comments or shoot me a private email. I'd love to talk to them. Till next time, tight lines.